The white ash, also known as the American ash. Native to North America, white ash can live up to 250 years, and this notable specimen was well into its second century, and by all means should have easily lived another century or more. Sadly, its life was cut short by an invasive species of insect called the emerald ash borer, which is decimating ash trees in many U.S. states and Canada. It threatens the entire North American population, and if it continues at its current rate, it's possible that the American ash could completely disappear, as was the case with the American chestnut and the American elm.
What we have here is a really old ash tree. I mean, it's a true champion. I have no idea how old it is, but unfortunately, it died. The emerald ash borer moved into this area a couple years ago, and we were unable to save it, so she's a goner. And sometimes I like to leave big trees like this out there, but this one is just so big and so perfect that I don't want to let it go to waste. We're going to make some terrific lumber out of this tree. Wow, that is impressive. My goodness. I hope I can move it. Now that the tree is down, we can see the effect of the emerald ash borer. Something I couldn't detect down at the base. There was no sign of infection. But you can see the exit holes when they leave after they've done their damage. See all the little holes in it. It happens mostly up on the top sections, I guess. Probably dies from the top down. And then over here, we look where the bark is looser. You can actually see where the borers were crawling around under the bark, doing their damage. Right there. And of course all the holes. That's a shame. I don't think this tree has been dead that long, because this one branch right here still seems to be, well, it's there, but brittle, so it's been dead a year or two, but I don't think it's been dead more than a few years.
When we take a closer look at the stump, we see a beautiful pattern of zonate circles present in the growth rings. These circles are caused by a fungus that has infested the heartwood of the tree, resulting in a process known as spalting. When the log is processed into lumber, the spalting creates colorful patterns in the wood grain, resulting in lumber that is highly valued by furniture makers. It will be interesting to see how the spalting in this log turns out after it is milled. It measured 31 inches in diameter across the widest direction, and 29 inches in diameter across the narrowest direction. A tree's age can be determined by counting the growth rings in its trunk. The light rings are growth that occurred during the spring and early summer, and the dark rings are formed in late summer and fall. One set of light and dark rings represents 1 year. A count of the rings in this tree reveals that it was right around 145 years old. Much as a geologist can read the layers in sedimentary rock to determine what the environment was like in the past, tree rings can be read to determine what the environment was like during the tree's lifetime. The wider the growth rings, the more growth that occurred during that year. Factors that can determine ring width are the availability of water, sunlight, ambient temperature, and available nutrients. The oldest rings are in the center of the tree and can be seen on the left in the small dark circle called the pith. Since these rings are very close together, we can assume slow growth that is probably due to the sapling getting very little sun, as it struggles to grow tall enough to reach the canopy and more sun. A count of the rings showed it took 25 years for just 2 inches of growth. Moving to the right, we can see the start of thicker rings, possibly indicating that the tree has reached a height above its nearby trees that allowed it more sunlight. During this period, the tree grew at a rate of 12 years per 2 inches of growth, or twice as fast. Continuing to the right, we see the rings becoming narrower, which could be from surrounding trees growing faster and starting to block some sunlight, or possibly a drought. In this case, since the tree was growing along a stream, the former is more likely. After 5 or so more years, the rings start to thicken up again. This could mean that the tree has grown high enough to outcompete the surrounding trees again, or it could be the end of the drought. It could also be an indication that a nearby competing tree blew down or died, opening up a space in the canopy that allowed more sunlight in. The tree then grows at a very steady rate for the next 40 years, and then it starts to slow down. This is more than likely due to nearby trees catching up in height and beginning to block the sunlight again. The presence of a very large hemlock and another large ash growing right next door pretty much confirms this hypothesis. We see a sharp increase in the narrowing of the rings during the last years of the tree's life, with the last inch of growth requiring approximately 20 years. This could be due to shading from those nearby trees, or it may be an indication of the start of the ash borer infestation that eventually killed the tree. Time to break out the old 72 John Deere 300 backhoe and drag this tree out. We call him the forest scorpion. He's a tough little machine, but I knew that I would be pushing him to his limit with this massive tree. The trick is to stretch the bucket out all the way, and then use the same motion to drag the tree as the one that powerfully digs a bucket of dirt out of the ground. Then when you run out of pull, extend back out, shorten the chain, and repeat. You can drag in about 10 feet at a time. I only had enough chain to reach so far, so I had to drag the tree out whole. After cutting off all the downward facing limbs, I gave it a try and was pleasantly surprised to see I was able to move it. After dragging it closer, I was able to trim off the unwanted branches and grab onto the main trunk. It was necessary to pull out the tree in one piece, because I knew if I cut the bottom 8 feet off in the creek, not only would I not be able to reach it, but it would be impossible to pull that log up over the creek bank. I dragged it close enough to cut off the first log and still be able to reach the remaining log. Conditions had to be perfect for a tree to reach this age and size. Its location in this stream valley provided protection from the strongest winds and coldest temperatures. Its proximity to the stream provided it with all the water it could possibly need, even during the worst droughts. Being located down this valley also made it difficult for timber harvesting, saving it from the logger's axe and chainsaw. Attack from an invasive species for which it has no natural defense was the one threat it could not survive. Now that I had it up where I could get a better look at it, I was able to truly appreciate the magnificence of this log. 30 inches in diameter, 18 feet long, solid from one end to the other, and completely void of even the tiniest branch stub or other defect. I suspect that it had a chance of being graded as a veneer log, which is the highest grade level of all. They are used to make paneling. The only thing that might disqualify it is the slight curve. Either way, I planned on making some very fine natural edge slabs from it. The logs were so heavy, I had to load up the front bucket with boulders to act as a counterweight. After cutting the log into 10 and 8-foot pieces, they were ready to drag out. It's important to keep your sawyer happy. A clean log will not dull the saw blade as fast, allowing for more quality lumber to be produced before having to change saw blades. My sawyer has arrived, and he's towing his Wood-Mizer portable sawmill. The 8-footer was first, and the forest scorpion was barely able to lift it up off the ground with the front bucket. My homemade bucket forks performed well, moving the big logs around and loading them onto the mill. Now you can see why we call him the forest scorpion.
We're here today on this beautiful autumn day with owner and operator of Reid Farms, Mr. J. Reid himself. We've got his helper Greg over here, and we're going to be turning our logs into some beautiful lumber. What is it? Just how many years have you been coming here?
I think this is our third or fourth trip here.
I think so, yeah. And I'm glad to have you
Every
because
other years, I think it's been.
right. So it's been over 6 years. I've had many sawyers in the past, but Jay by far is above and beyond all of them on the quality of his lumber. The last time you were here, the stuff you cut was so perfect. It was a joy building with it. Does a beautiful job.
Yep.
And right now we have a log on here, this ash. What do you think of this log, Jay?
Yeah, it's a pretty nice log. I mean, it appears to be perfectly clean and clear. I mean, there's no limbs on it. It's right on the borderline of being able to cut the thing perfectly with this mill because it's so large.
Right. We're at 28 inches in one direction and 31 in the other, and you have a trick you're going to use to try to...
Yeah, we're going to have to...
We'll cut it the skinny way, right?
Yeah, because the mill only cut 28 inches this way.
Right. So I guess we're right at the limit.
Quite a bit taller this way, but if you want, he wants live edge lumber, which is bark on two sides. We're going to have to do a trick to get it to cut and leave the bark on.
And that's why you're the guy. You can make it fit. So we're going to do. We're going to cut it in this direction, right up, standing up. We're going to have to stand this wide part up. So my ultimate goal, I have a special purpose for a big slab, right out of the center here. 3 inches I'm going to want at the widest part of the log, and I have a special. I'm going to make a special table out of that for project that I'm going to be doing here next year. So other than that, we'll probably take 2-inch slabs.
Yeah, we'll get 2-inch slabs all the way down through. Basically, the only waste on this log would be the first and last cut, or however we place it. It'd be the two that take the round off of the wider side.
So lots of 2-inch slabs, and then one big, beautiful
We'll shoot
3-incher
for a
out
thick
of
one
the
right in the
center.
middle.
Sounds like a plan. All right, let's get cutting.
The log was so big and heavy, the Wood-Mizer hydraulics groaned in protest as it rotated it into position. Lumber made from white ash has a straight, strong, light-colored grain, making it a choice wood for furniture makers and woodworkers. Its shock resistance makes it perfect for the manufacturing of baseball bats, tool handles, and wood flooring. It got tight when we were cutting the first 3-inch slab. We had to flip the debarker out of the way and temporarily remove the pulley guards to get more clearance. The trick was to loosen the hydraulic holder, to shove the log to the side at the very end, to take advantage of the curve and get past that tight spot at the last inch. Let's take a look and see how the slabs are turning out. We can now see the beautiful spalted grain that we saw in the stump earlier, and only 2 tiny knots can be seen. We went on to saw an equal number of slabs out of the remaining log and a half a dozen more out of the 10-footer. I'm planning on making a table out of one of the 3-inch slabs and a couple of solid ash doors out of some of the 2-inch slabs. Even though the ancient tree has come to the end of its life, its lumber will be used to make some beautiful furniture that will live on and be enjoyed for many generations to come.